Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I want to start by apologizing to everyone. I was on vacation last week, and I'm not apologizing for being on vacation last week. I'm apologizing for not telling you guys that I was going to be on vacation next week. And I know that some folks were looking for the Bible study last week and didn't find it, and I apologize for that. I also want to apologize that I'm not as prepared tonight as I should be, and I honestly not feeling that great tonight. I might have a short class tonight, but maybe not because tonight we are finishing up with Genesis. We finally reached the end of Genesis, and we will start Exodus next week. And this tonight's lesson is a good setup for Exodus. I see that we've got Dick and Nardine here. Welcome. We've got John here. Got a few others haven't said hi yet, and that's okay. If you're willing to say hi, please do so. Let us know where you're joining us from. I want to also thank, I think it was the Connect group was here tonight, and they gave me some snickerdoodles and some gummy worms. And they're the Sour Patch Kid gummy worms. Very nice. Hey, Mike. Good to see you tonight. So, and Rob, Tony, and Gene are here. So once again, folks, we are doing one Bible story at a time. Bible basics, all the basic stories. Finally finishing up Genesis tonight. And I know that I always say I encourage you to read the story in advance, and I will send it to you in advance. And I keep sending it out to you the day before. Hey, Barbara Hamilton's here. Hopefully that's enough time for you. I do want to get back to sending them out on Fridays as soon as I can. I should never put that candy in my mouth while I'm trying to talk. So, the version that I'm sending out is my paraphrased version. I'm trying to keep it sounding as much like the Bible as I can while also making it easily readable to a modern reader. So, let's go ahead and start with a word of prayer, shall we? Gracious God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, for you alone are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. All right, so tonight, finishing up Genesis, what we're taking tonight, what we're going to be looking at tonight is basically the second half of Genesis chapter 47 and the very end of Genesis chapter 50. Hey, Joan's with us. Good to have you here tonight, Joan. Welcome. I am so glad that so many people found us after me taking an unannounced week off. And I know there's some folks that are just now leaving church that are going to try and watch us at a later date, if not joining tonight. Somebody said, I'm going to listen on the way home. I'm going to watch you on the way home while I'm driving. I know some of you folks listen in the car, but please don't try to watch in the car. All right. So I'm calling this the end of the beginning because that's really what it is. Genesis is the beginning of the story of Israel, and this is the end of the beginning. So when last we left off 2 weeks ago, we were dealing with Joseph, and he had finally revealed himself. Charles Burgess is here with us. Hello, Charles. Oh, and Kim's with us too. Sorry, I didn't say hi to Kim. Hi, Kim. Oh, Estella Mumas here. Hey, welcome. So, Joseph has been in Egypt for some time. His family has been coming to him for grain, and so finally last week he revealed himself to them. And this is what happens afterwards. Pharaoh spoke with Joseph and said, Your father and brothers have arrived. Settle them in the best land Egypt has to offer. Let them live in Goshen. Pick the most competent of them and put them in charge of my livestock. Joseph gave his father and his brothers the best land in Egypt, the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh ordered. He provided all of them with enough food for their families. No one else had food, because the famine was severe. Everyone in Egypt and Canaan was suffering. Joseph collected all the money in the land as the people bought grain, and it all went to Pharaoh. When all the money was gone, the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, Give us bread. Please don't let us die because we've run out of money. Joseph said, If your money is all gone, give me your livestock. Joseph gave them food in exchange for all their horses, flocks, herds, and donkeys. The next year they came to him and said, "You know our plight. You've taken our money and our livestock. There's nothing left but our bodies and our land. Please don't let us die. Take us and our land, and we will belong to Pharaoh." So Joseph took everything and everyone in Egypt for Pharaoh. He relocated the people to the cities, moving them from one end of Egypt to the other. The priests were the only ones who kept their land. Pharaoh provided them with grain, so they didn't have to sell everything. Joseph said to the people, "You and your land belong to Pharaoh now. I will give you seed to plant. When the harvest comes, you will give a fifth to Pharaoh. The other 4 parts will be yours." They said, "You saved our lives. We will be Pharaoh's slaves if that's what you want." Israel lived in Egypt, in the land of Goshen, Israel being both the people and the person. They became wealthy and populous. Jacob lived there for 17 years. He died at the age of 147. On his deathbed, he called Joseph and said, "Please, don't bury me in Egypt. Bury me with my ancestors." Joseph said, "I will." Israel said, "Swear to me." And Joseph did. Jacob's sons did as he commanded them. They carried him to Canaan and buried him in a cave in the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought for a burial site. It was near Mamre. Joseph lived to the age of 110, and he said to his brothers, "I'm dying, but God will bring you up out of Egypt to the land he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When that day comes, take my bones with you." When Joseph died, they embalmed him and put him in a coffin. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. And this is all set up for what is going to happen in Exodus. Oh, I see Deb has joined us. Hello, Deb. Welcome. So what is going to happen in Exodus? Well, when Exodus opens, the people will be in slavery in Egypt. Or, I take it back, they will be taken into slavery in Egypt. And this is the interesting thing, and I don't want to be misunderstood on this. I'm not saying that Israel deserved what happened to it by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that what goes around comes around, because anybody who's paying attention knows that sometimes what goes around comes around, but an awful lot of times it does not actually come around. So I'm not saying that. It is both ironic and sad, though, and this is what I'm saying, that this slavery system that is going to be the bane of Israel's existence was introduced to Egypt by Joseph. Joseph was the one who put in place this system whereby Pharaoh owns pretty much everything and everyone, except, of course, Joseph's family, at least in the story we just heard. So you've got this situation in which Joseph, who to Egyptians is a foreigner, he came there from Canaan, and his family end up living on the best land in all of Egypt, while all the rest of the people of Egypt are losing everything and being relocated and then being heavily taxed. So this is a big change in fortune for these folks, and a big change in fortune for the people of Israel. And Israel is not a nation yet at this time. It's a people. It's a family. It's an extended family. We've got 12 brothers, not 12 tribes. That'll come much later, hundreds of years later, actually. So I'm not saying that Egypt's actions or Pharaoh's actions in Exodus are in any way excusable or justified, but it is interesting to see the flip side of the coin, that the people of Egypt have a bone to pick. And of course, as is very often the case in politics and in religion, People start off with a legitimate gripe, and then their they take their complaint to a level that is completely beyond reason. So that is what is going to happen between this week and next week as we go from Genesis into Exodus. So that's the overall commentary that I would want to set up for you. So what we see, if you just start the story with Exodus, you say, "Wow, these Egyptians are being terrible to these Israelites," and they are. And before that, the Israelites were being terrible to the Egyptians. Once again, I'm not saying they had it coming. I'm just saying things have a way of escalating, right? And that's what we're going to talk about in just a minute. So, what does the story tell us about God? And that, of course, is always the question when God is not present as a character in the story, and God is mentioned in the story, but is not directly active in the story. So, Joseph is making his decisions based on the assumption that the people are not always going to be in Egypt, right? He says, when I die, don't bury me here, take me back home. Well, at least eventually, when you go back home, and you will go back home, take me with you. So Joseph is working under the assumption that the people are eventually going to return to Canaan. This was supposed to be a sojourn in Egypt, and it's going to end up being much longer than that, and that's part of the problem. What does this story tell us about ourselves? What it tells me is that people are not nearly as concerned as they should be about the practice of setting bad precedents, because we still do that today. We have this habit of doing things that benefit us without regard for the precedent that it is setting for others who might want to follow suit. For example, and I'm not being at all political on this. There's nothing partisan about this. George W. Bush, when he was president, had a lot of policies he wanted to get through Congress, was unable to get them through Congress. So he did two things that were at that time innovative, we'll call them. One is that he started using executive orders to do a lot of things that previously would have been considered policies that would have needed to have been created by law, by act of Congress. And the other was that he started using the line item veto to just disregard portions of laws that he disagreed with. And his party, the Republican Party, was very excited about this because it allowed them to get done some things that have been stalled in Congress. As we all know, laws can be, Congress is dysfunctional. No matter which party is in charge of the White House, no matter which party is in charge of Congress, they don't get a whole lot done. So the party that the president belonged to said, "Oh, this is all great that he's doing this stuff." Some of us said, "Wait a minute. That's not the only question. The question isn't just whether or not we agree with the policy. The question is what precedent is he setting? Because the precedent that he set was then followed by President Obama, who had a very different set of policies that he wanted to put in place, and he did it the same way. He said, "I've got a pen," right? Famously in his second term, he said, "I've got a pen." So he used it to write executive orders, and he used it to do the line item veto. And then, of course, so he ended up using those powers more than George W. Bush did. And then President Trump came in, and he used all of those powers even more than Obama did in the 4 years that he was there. And now President Biden is in, and he's using all of those powers even more than his predecessors did. So because this precedent was set in place, started a snowball rolling, right? And so the administrative authority of the White House has gotten progressively more powerful with each generation. So perhaps Joseph should have been asking the question, is allowing people to sell themselves into slavery to save their lives a good precedent to set? Obviously, from our perspective, it's unethical. They had never heard of that in those days. From our perspective, it's obviously unethical.